Welcome back. Well, famed attorney and frequent guest of this program, Alan Dershowitz, who has been defending the president during the Mueller probe, warning the White House that should be worried about Paul Manafort's recent guilty plea. Listen.
Potentially, it opens up lots of doors that probably haven't been opened before. I think from the point of view of Mueller, this is a big win. This is a big gain because he gets access to somebody.
But our next guest argues Manafort's plea has nothing to do with the president. He's former Trump campaign manager. Corey Lewandowski, co-author of Let Trump Be Trump. He joins us now to explain. Corey, you know, Alan Dershowitz would say, I haven't been defending the president. I've just been defending his rights like anyone else's because he thinks it's been an unfair probe. But it did seem interesting that he went on MSNBC and said, wait, Manafort might be different.
Well, Ed, I'll tell you, I was there when Paul Manafort was at the campaign. The crimes that he has been accused and now convicted of all took place a dozen years prior to him coming to the campaign for that brief period. So, look, Paul didn't pay his taxes. Paul had foreign bank accounts. Paul didn't register as a foreign agent when he was doing work for companies and countries and individuals overseas. That has nothing to do with Donald Trump. And
all
look,
true.
This wasn't just Paul Manafort.
Right, all true, pardon me, but I think what Alan Dershowitz and others are suggesting, and they could be wrong, and that's why we're having you on to get all sides here, is that, yes, the crimes are old, but does he flip now and say something about the 2016 campaign, say about the Trump Tower meeting?
There's nothing to flip on. I was there. I was still the campaign manager during that meeting. We know what took place in that meeting, which was nothing. We know that many people wanted to provide dirt on Hillary Clinton, but what we also know was the only campaign that took $5 million and paid a former British spy to go to Russia to dig up the false dossier was the Clinton campaign. When is the Mueller team going to go look at what they actually did? When is the Mueller team going to go and investigate those individuals? When is the FBI going to prosecute Andrew McCabe for lying under oath? Look, Paul Manafort broke the law for crimes that he committed a dozen years ago. It has nothing to do because there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. There was no coordination. And the only campaign in 2016 that was trying to collude with Russia was the Clinton campaign.
Corey, you mentioned the Clinton campaign. You mentioned Robert Mueller. On Friday, when Manafort entered his plea deal, the documentation that the special counsel actually released mentions Tony Podesta, who is the brother of Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, and there are accusations that he did not register under FARA as well, but that part's being ignored in the headline. They're making it all about Manafort, all about President Trump. What is your response to the Podesta news?
Well, and it's not just Tony Podesta. You're exactly right, Katie. It's also the former White House counsel in the Obama administration who's part of this. But that doesn't sell newspapers. That's not the headlines that the left wants to talk about. They want to go after Paul Manafort, but look at the individuals Paul was doing business with. It's Tony Podesta. It's the former White House counsel. Where is that story? When do those individuals get brought into this? They were also, looks like, acting as foreign agents and forgot or chose not to register. Where's the accountability there? Look, it's more fake news, and Paul's now been held accountable and is going to go to jail, but it has to be fair across the board. So let's have that fairness happen.
Corey, we've got 30 seconds, but we're going to try to shift gears quickly. The president tweeting yesterday he's disappointed with Republican leadership and their unwillingness to fund a border wall. There's a potential showdown in October over the budget. Should the president threaten or actually shut the government down if he doesn't get funding for the wall?
Well, I'll tell you, Pete, you know this. This was a hallmark of the campaign. It's a promise he made and a promise he's going to fulfill. What I don't understand is why Republicans or Democrats in Congress don't want to put a wall up on our southern border so we can protect individuals in our country from bad hombres coming in, right? I don't get it. This is as simple as it gets. Let's build the wall. The president has made a commitment to doing this. He's going to get it done. And if they don't find a way to put the money in place, then closing the government to protect U.S. citizens is the right thing to do.
All right.
We shall see.
Corey Lewandowski, thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey.
Here with John Yoo. He's former Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Bush Justice Department. He's also a law professor at the University of California, Berkeley. So no better guest at this moment for me. Let me ask you this. Peter was just talking about what the Senate Judiciary should do. What do you think it should do?
I also, in my resume, had once been the general counsel of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and there's a standard process to follow here. You could send the FBI agents out to interview Ms. Ford under oath and to interview Judge Kavanaugh under oath and then report back to the Judiciary Committee. The leadership of the committee and the other members can decide whether more hearings are necessary or not. it may not be the case you need to have more hearings, but you want to find out what people are going to tell you under oath first. That said, I doubt that a lot new will turn up because this happened so long ago, over about 35 years ago. The only other corroborating witness who was there says it didn't happen. Judge Kavanaugh said it didn't happen. Ms. Ford doesn't remember a lot of the details, apparently, not even the year when it happened. And so I don't think you're going to have any new information that's going to make a difference. But the senators still may want to look Judge Kavanaugh in the eye. They may want to look Ms. Ford in the eye to make a judgment about credibility. I don't think this should take longer than a week or two at most.
When it comes to the FBI, just getting some information here, is it the White House that has to ask the FBI to reopen the background investigation?
Well, the Judiciary Committee can ask. So when the FBI does one of these background investigations, they're providing it to the White House, but they're also providing it to the Judiciary Committee. And the Judiciary Committee can ask. They can't direct the FBI. As you mentioned, Dana, the FBI does work directly under the president. The president is the chief law enforcement officer. But the Senate could also choose not to move forward unless the White House cooperates.
All right, let me get to another topic with you because we originally booked you to talk about the first day of the second Paul Manafort trial. But before we could get to that, Paul Manafort has pled guilty. Let me read to you what was written about him by Aaron Blake in the Washington Post, saying that Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to 8 counts of his own. And in doing so, Cohen effectively named Trump as an unindicted co-conspirator in a campaign finance violation, ratcheting up Trump's legal problems significantly. It could be, although it's impossible to say with any certainty, that this changed the calculus for Manafort and that you get then to Manafort pleading guilty. My question for you is, why would Manafort plead guilty now rather than before his first trial where then he was convicted and is now a convicted criminal?
Dana, I'm afraid I don't buy that conspiracy theory. I don't actually think Cohen pleading to different crimes in a different jurisdiction really affected Manafort. I don't blame Manafort for pleading out. I think he should have pled out for the first trial, too. I don't know why he tried to roll the dice on a long shot hope that he might get acquitted by that jury, because I think he was guilty on the documents. And I think the government had him to rights in the second trial. I don't blame him for wanting to avoid.
You say, though, that you think there is good news for President Trump in this plea that Manafort just did?
Yeah, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is this is going to continue the investigation longer. I've been hoping President Trump would accelerate things by agreeing to cooperate with Mr. Mueller. The good news for President Trump is even with the plea, you still don't see any claims or links between the Trump campaign on the one hand and Russia. I don't see any evidence, any facts still out there about any kind of conspiracy to violate federal law. That's what Mueller's really supposed to be investigating.
And so you think that the president, if he wants to see this end, that he needs to cooperate, though his lawyers are telling him that it wouldn't be a good idea?
I think the best thing for the president and the best thing for the country, Dana, is to get the investigation over with as soon as possible. The more President Trump fights with Mueller, resists sitting down and answering questions, the longer this is going to go on. I think he could end this long national fight by sitting down with Mr. Mueller and answering the questions directly about what he did and what he didn't do. President Trump said he didn't do anything wrong, so he has nothing really to be afraid of by telling the truth to the American people on television.
And Manafort is dealing with issues prior to him joining the campaign as well in that plea. All right, John Yoo, thank you.
Welcome to the Journal Editorial Report. I'm Paul Gigot. The conviction this week of President Trump's former campaign chair on 8 counts of fraud and the guilty plea of his former personal attorney on campaign finance charges are raising questions about just how much legal jeopardy President Trump could be in. The president's biggest vulnerability appears to be whether payments made by longtime lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen to silence 2 women claiming to have had affairs with Mr. Trump amount to illegal campaign contributions. In an interview on Fox Thursday, the president responded to questions about the hush payments by insisting that they were not a campaign violation.
They didn't come out of the campaign. They came from me, and I tweeted about it. You know, I don't know if you know, but I tweeted about the payments. But they didn't come out of campaign. In fact, my first question when I heard about it was, did they come out of the campaign? Because that could be a little dicey. and they didn't come out of the campaign, and that's big. But they weren't. It's not even a campaign violation.
Michael Mukasey is the former Attorney General of the United States. He served for 18 years as a U.S. District Court judge for the Southern District of New York. Judge Mukasey, welcome back. Great to see you again. How much peril, legal peril now, not political, legal peril is the president in from Michael Cohen's plea deal?
Very little, I think. If you're talking about the four corners of the violation that Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to. In fact, there is a good case, I think, to be made out that even on the facts that Michael Cohen disclosed in court, he would have a good defense if he wanted to fight the charge.
And, of course, that's what's curious here. As I look at the plea deal, they got him on plenty of very serious charges, multiple tax evasion charges, for example. They didn't really need to bring in the campaign finance violation, yet it was there. Why do you think they did that?
Well, I think that was much more in his interest because as to the tax violations and as to the bank fraud that he pleaded guilty to, he's in that alone. That's his crime.
Right.
Those are his crimes. But as to the campaign finance violation, then he can bring in another person, i.e. the President of the United States, on whose behalf this expenditure was made, or these expenditures were made. And so, in a sense, he has more of an interest in pleading guilty to something that may not be a crime, so that he can get leniency in connection with the crimes to which he did plead guilty and which are crimes. That is the tax fraud and the bank fraud.
Yeah, but the implication there is that the prosecutors would have wanted him to plead guilty to that campaign finance violation in the words that he did, in the way that he did, implicating the president, because they, the prosecutors, wanted to implicate the president. Is that a fair inference?
I guess it's a fair inference. That allocution, I'm sure, was negotiated, and yet the statute, which is what all this depends on,
right,
says that the contribution has to be made for the purpose of furthering the election of a campaign, of a candidate for federal office. And there is case law to the effect that if an expenditure is made, even during a campaign, in a way that's helpful to a candidate, for example, a sponsorship of a senior citizens function by a candidate for public office, who doesn't have a very good record with senior citizens,
right.
that was found not to be a violation of the statute because there was an ancillary benefit to it. It helped the senior citizens, and it was generally a civic good. So here, there was protection, obviously, for Donald Trump's reputation, and the contribution, of course, didn't go to the campaign. It went to the two women.
Right. So if the president is accurate that this didn't go through this was for the purpose of, didn't go through was from him, wasn't through any corporate entity, and was for another purpose other than influencing the campaign, even if it helped the campaign, then there's no violation under normal interpretations of the law.
That's my view.
Okay.
And I think that's the view of the governing case law.
Right. Now, mostly these campaign finance violations, in my experience, and it's not as detailed as yours with the law, but as I've observed these cases, they're mostly handled administratively with fines or something like that. Is that your understanding?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
So very rarely are they ever charged as criminal felonies. So if that's
very rarely.
Okay. So if that's the case. Well, let's step back a second. This is from the Southern District of New York. This was not done by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, this indictment, this plea bargain. It was based on referral of evidence from the Special Counsel, but done by the Southern District. Can the Southern District take this evidence now? And let's say Congress decides to act and investigate this as a potential impeachment violation. Can the Southern District send that evidence to a report, say, to the Congress?
The Southern District can certainly provide that information to Mr. Mueller, who is definitely going to write a report. Okay.
Okay.
And the fact is that what was disclosed in open court is available to anybody. Nobody's got to send it.
Okay, then the court can subpoena anybody they want in terms of witness. The Congress can subpoena anybody they want in terms of witnesses and so on with an impeachment investigation. Correct. All right, let me turn to another subject, and that is the president's criticism of Attorney General Jeff Sessions. It was very pointed. The Attorney General responded sharply himself. What do you make of the president's criticism?
I've been saying for a long time that I think his criticisms of the Attorney General are both unjustified and unwise, and that hasn't changed. I think that to the extent he's suggesting that somehow the Justice Department ought to get an investigation started at his behest, I think makes it look like the Justice Department is simply a political arm of the White House, and that is extraordinarily unwise and undermines the Justice Department's mission. And I think that the Attorney General was perfectly justified in pushing back on that.
Yeah, this question of independence that the Justice Department has from the president. Of course, it's not under the Constitution an independent body. It reports to the president. The president is the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. And yet, you certainly don't want, as you suggested, cases, investigations to be seen or to be politicized in any way. How do you, as an attorney general, walk that line?
It's a delicate line to walk, because you are a member of the administration and you carry out administration policy and setting priorities at the Justice Department. But that is entirely different from whether you bring a case or stop a case at the behest of the White House for political reasons that serve the interests of the White House. That is something that is simply not done. And interestingly, you say that it's not a constitutional issue. The Justice Department isn't provided for in the Constitution. It's entirely a creation of statute.
Right.
And the relationship between the White House and the Justice Department is something that has grown up over time as a matter of usage and tradition.
So you want the Justice Department to be seen as being apolitical in the prosecutions that it brings, even if it answers to the president on policy. Is that the kind of distinction you're talking about, in general terms?
In general terms, yes. And it's more than a matter of being seen. They have to be actually independent, and there are strict rules governing the relationship between the White House. There's strict rules within the Justice Department governing the relationship between the White House and the Justice Department, such that the Justice Department may contact, the White House may contact the Justice Department only through political appointees.
All right. Thank you, Judge Mukasey. Very illuminating. Appreciate it.